Hello, everyone. Welcome back and welcome to episode 2 of the Erad Football Podcast. My name is Iconic EU, joined by my man Jakey here.
How's it going, guys?
And today we will be talking about the Premier League Week 1 fixtures. We will be discussing all things Premier League, what happened, what we disagree with, just our
opinions.
opinions on the results, basically.
I think we will start off with what was match day one, very first game on the Friday. It was Palace v Arsenal.
It was.
Shall we get into it then?
Let's do it. So, as everyone will well know by now, Arsenal won comfortably 2-0. Now, I say comfortably. People watching the game won't have actually believed it was as comfortable as the result would suggest. So, Arsenal started off, as everyone expected, on absolute fire. Arteta set them out well. They had their new signings in Zinchenko, obviously brought back Saliba, and they had Jesus up top. And they started off absolutely on fire. Martinelli, missed a golden opportunity in the first 5-10 minutes. Should have put them 1-0 up, but they kept that pressure on Palace until the breakthrough came in the 20th minute, where I believe it was from a corner. It was flicked on at the near post, and Martinelli was on the spot to head it goalwards and got Arsenal off to a great start.
Opens his account for the season in what could be a very promising season for him.
Absolutely. And I think he will have to chime in with a few goals this season, Martinelli. It can't all be relied on Jesus to score all the goals. Martinelli and Saka and Nketiah off the bench will have to do bits in places.
I think it is a big season for Martinelli as well. I think this is kind of his make or break season. He's had one or two okay seasons, but I think this is really now it's time to, cement his place in the Premier League, cement his place in this Arsenal team, and carry on this goal scoring form.
I agree. But as I say, the first half was pretty much all dominated by Arsenal. Palace was not shocked by how well Arsenal was playing, but they struggled to get into the game. And they came in at half time. Arsenal was 1-0 up, pretty much dominating. And you expected the trend to continue in the second half, but Patrick Vieira must have gave everyone's head an absolute wobble in the changing rooms at half time. And Palace came out absolutely on fire, to be honest. They dominated the ball in large portions of the game, which is crazy to say, but not actually that crazy to say, because I do believe Patrick Vieira and Palace have got a good idea and identification of how they want to play football. But they had absolute threats in Edouard. Zaha was causing them problems. You had some half-decent performances from Nathaniel Klein, obviously. Mitchell played well at left-back. Decore looked very good in the midfield. He actually dominated that in the second half. Ayew looked lively in places. Eze looked really good on the ball, tricky. But to be honest, even though that they were playing well in the second half and did push Arsenal back, that Arsenal backline just stayed firm, really. They weathered the storm. And then in the 85th minute, even though Palace was still pushing, and to be fair to them, they gave it a right good go. He had a breakaway. Saka got into the box. He tried to fire it. I don't believe he took a shot. I believe he tried to fire it across the box, but it was unfortunately turned in by Mark Gahey. And that was pretty much all she wrote for that game. Just touching on the performance as a whole and the players. Jesus looked lively. I think it will still take a bit of time for them to get used to how they want to play with him in the Premier League. Obviously, he scored a lot of goals in pre-season, but it's going to take some adaptation for them in the Premier League, because obviously it's faster paced. You're going to have players right up your backside. You're not going to have as much time and space as you do in a pre-season game. But all in all, good signs for Arsenal. They started exactly how they were meant to, because if they'd have had the pre-season they did, and then they say drew to Palace or lost to Palace, obviously everyone knows how bad of a start they had last season, where they lost to Brentford, then I think they drew to Newcastle, and it was just a poor August for them last season. But obviously they weathered the storm and turned it around and ended up finishing just outside the Champions League places, which you can argue they pretty much bottled that. They should have made the Champions League.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But I don't think any Arsenal fans really expected it last season. But this season they will be expecting big things with the signings they've made. And yeah, I think Arsenal played very well, and I think they're in for a very exciting season. As an Arsenal fan, I'd be very excited.
I think on just touching on Palace as well, I don't think it'll be a performance that Vieira will turn his nose up at, but I don't think it'll be the result that he exactly wanted. You know, coming out in that second half and, as you said, dominating the ball. You know, it shows promising signs of how Vieira wants to set up.
Yeah,
but I
absolutely.
think the result will be disappointing for him.
It will be starting at home first game of the season, but I don't think Patrick Vieira will whatsoever. I think personally, if I watching the game, if I was Patrick Vieira, I saw a lot to be encouraged by.
Yeah. Well, we'll move on to what will be the second game, which was my boys. It was Liverpool versus Fulham.
Yes, I'll let you take the role on this one.
Now, I will say we did start off with a very strong lineup, but that was not resemblance in the performance. I thought for large periods of the game we were sloppy. I thought, you know, midfield was bullied for a lot of the game. The passing was shambolic, and Fulham started with a fire in the belly. I think they've came into this game thinking, you know, it's a very good Liverpool team, a team that a lot of people see as untouchable, and they came to prove a point, and prove a point they did. You know, Mitrovic scored early on. Well, I say early on, but late on in the first half, but early on in the game, with a back post header, getting above Trent. I think that's an area Trent needs to work on heavily, is his defensive awareness, because as much as I love him going forward, there are holes in his game. I'm not that much of a deluded fan to think he's this perfect fullback.
That's always been the question mark with Trent.
That is the question mark, and as good as he is going forward, there are holes in his defensive game, and I think I wouldn't mind. I think it wouldn't be a silly decision to go look for a right back and move Trent forward. I think Trent would be, if you take the defensive responsibility out of Trent's game, you'd probably see him thrive as a player.
I'd agree. That's why a lot of people have always said maybe don't play him right back and play him as a midfielder.
Yeah,
but
I can see why a lot of people say that. I think his link up with Trent would be more beneficial should you play him higher up in the pitch.
That's true, but the way I see it though, and the way obviously Klopp sees it, is you don't fix what's not broken.
Yeah. Going on, you know, Darwin Núñez came on around the 50th minute and absolutely changed the game. His link-up play, which a lot of people questioned at the start whether it was good enough, it is good enough. I think he's more than capable of playing as a link-up player, and he's got that eye for goal. He came on, we created chances, we had an outlet which we didn't have with Firmino, and after 64 minutes, I said not even after 10 minutes of him coming on, he's had 2 chances and scored 1.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he is going to be a player that we rely on heavily for goals, along with Salah. I think it's going to be them two that carry us forward, and I think Núñez will score a lot of goals this season.
Mm-hmm.
The big talking point of the game for me was that Mitrovic penalty. In my opinion, very, very soft, and just kind of now implies to forwards that if you feel any bit of contact, just go down, and you get the penalty. I think, yes, it was sloppy defending by Van Dijk. He's left his leg there. He's given Mitrovic the chance to feel contact and fall down, but very, very soft, in my opinion, very soft. And it was Mitrovic that converted the penalty.
Now, I'm going to touch on this just a little bit, because even though I didn't watch the game because I was working, I have seen replay of that penalty incident, and I actually disagree. Well, you didn't say it wasn't a penalty, but I do believe it was a penalty. When you, as a defender, swing your leg like that, if you don't get the ball and you make contact with the man, even if it's the slightest touch, and I do agree Mitrovic does go down easy, but once you do that, you give the referee and now VAR the opportunity. And the idea with VAR, once it goes to VAR, it has to be a clear and obvious error from the referee to overturn it. And there's no evidence there that the referee made a mistake whatsoever. So that was never ever going to get overturned by VAR. And once you give the referee a decision to make, even if it is soft, which I agree, it's still a penalty because he doesn't get the ball and he does get the man. So unfortunate for Liverpool. As a Liverpool fan, I'd be a bit aggrieved by it, but the letter of the law does say contact in the box. The attacker does have every right to go down, no matter how small. And as I say, you just give the referee a decision to make. If I'm Van Dijk, I'm looking at that and going, yeah, I should have just stayed on my feet, not swung a leg. But lessons learned there anyway.
Yeah. I just think it's one of them. I think it's going to be a very big topic if that's how the referees are set to officiate. You know, if it is any bit of contact is now reason enough to go down, I think it's going to be a very hot topic. And well, I think if that's any other player, if that's a Sterling, if that's a Salah, if that's, you know, any other player, there's question marks about diving. And I think, possibly, you know, it's just one of them. It's if it happens against you, you feel aggrieved. If it happens for you, you're gonna love it. It's one of them. But I think it was harsh.
I will touch on the subject of you saying about contact, because the first thing they actually spoke about on Monday Night Football was actually the new rules that have been brought in by the Premier League for referees and officiating. So they're basically trying to get the game flowing as much as possible now. So I don't know, you probably saw it in the United game or whatever games you watched. A lot of these 50-50 tackles now are just being let go of. They're not whistling up on them. The problem was that it was in the box. And as I say, when Van Dijk does swing a leg and the referee does see him swing a leg and you can tell he doesn't get the ball because the ball's gone, you just give him a decision to make there. But I do believe that the officiating has been, from what I've seen of the Premier League this weekend, it's been officiated well this weekend.
I'll say I disagree, but we'll leave it at that. I think officiating has been so inconsistent this weekend and has been so poor.
Well, for me, I think the new rules that have been brought in can only benefit us because for me as a football fan, I don't want to see the game stopped every 2 minutes for pointless fouls and stuff like that, because there are tons of players that when it's not going their way, they're just going to go down even off the smallest contact, and you can't outmuscle anyone anymore and all this and that. And I like the way they're trying to bring it back to not as much as like old school football where you could just go flying into tackles and stuff like that.
But that's the game flow more.
Exactly. But I'll let you finish the game off.
Well, that's really it. You know, we got a chance in the 80th minute. Darwin Núñez touches the ball down to Salah, and Salah brings it back to 2-2. And I think it's a 2-2 that, yes, we can be happy with because we didn't deserve it. But I think the performance was very questionable, and it's going to raise a lot of eyebrows. Do I think Fulham can carry on with this style of play that they employ? No. Is it entertaining to watch, though? Yes. They created a lot of chances while not clinical. There was volume in attack. They countered well. They set up well. And I think, you know, 2-2 they'll be aggrieved by because I think they'd probably think they deserve the win, which, you know, I'm not going to argue against. But I think it was a very lucky 2-2 on our part because we were awful.
I'll just touch on Fulham a little bit in terms of the actual result. I do agree with you that from the bits I've seen, they did play at a very, very high intensity. And can they keep that up all season? Probably not. But there's two things that stand out for me as a Fulham fan that I would be very, very excited by. Number one, they've just shown that they can take it to one of the biggest hitters in the Premier League on match day one, back in the Premier League, at your home ground, crowd behind you. There's no other better feeling than a football fan coming up from the Championship, because a lot of teams know if you supported a team that's come up from the Championship, that first season can be dreadful as a football fan. You're on the edge for every second of every minute of every game, just hoping that something goes your way. And the second biggest thing is the last time Fulham were in the Premier League, they had a striker. His name was Alexander Mitrovic. Yeah. He did absolutely nothing. So for him to get off the mark not with one, but for two goals, it is absolutely dreamland for Fulham fans, because all that does now is fill Mitrovic with confidence that he can do it.
Yeah.
As a striker, if you start off with a couple of goals, you can then push on from there. And I do believe he will do. I think he will be the reason Fulham stay up in the Premier League. Alexander Mitrovic. He needs to score goals. I said this before the game. I said Mitrovic needs to score goals if they want to stay in the Premier League. And he started off with 2. So fantastic for Mitrovic. Awesome for Fulham. And Liverpool, work to be done.
Yeah, work to be done. Big work to be done. Also, if we lose to the likes of Thiago for a lengthy spell, we need a midfielder. Heavily need a midfielder.
Mm-hmm.
Right, we'll go on to the last game of that day. It'll be Everton versus Chelsea.
Are we skipping the 3 o'clocks, are we?
We'll touch more on the 3 o'clocks, but I don't think there were games that a lot of people saw because the stupid rules of not being able to show 3 o'clock kickoffs.
That's true.
Which I think a lot of fans will be wound up about. But we'll move on to the games that were televised, and then we'll give a brief bit about the 3 o'clock kickoffs, because there were some very big hitters in them 3 o'clock kickoffs.
Good plan.
Chelsea Everton. Obviously, Chelsea come away 1-0 winners of that game.
They do, and I think they're a bit lucky to actually do so.
The question marks that raised my eyebrows before this game were prevalent. Absolutely no creativity going forward for Chelsea. Yes, they had that volume in shots, but they were never testing Pickford. It was just there were 1 or 2 where Pickford spilled it, but it was. I think the goal that was disallowed for Sterling was a shot that came from a Pickford error, but he was offside. I think.
Yeah.
Attacking prowess is a big worry for Chelsea at the minute, and I think it's going to be their undoing this season of getting higher up the table.
Yeah, for me, the liveliest player on that pitch was actually Raheem Sterling. He was trying to get a foothold in everything. He was really trying his hardest.
I'd say it was probably my man of the match out of that game. I thought he was.
It was between him and Koulibaly for me, because the thing is, even when Chelsea were attacking, because when it was like the 40th minute or so and it was still 0-0, you could see Chelsea fans were getting a bit restless, because this is Everton. This is a team that have lost players. This is a team that everyone expected Chelsea to win this 3-4-5-0.
This is also an Everton that took points off them last season, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's one of the games that kept Everton in the Premier League.
Yeah.
But you could tell the fans were getting restless. So when Chelsea did lose the ball in transition and Everton could break, they did actually break quite quickly, and they had chances. They did have chances, but they ran into a brick wall in Kalidou Koulibaly. This guy, as you say, is a Rolls Royce of a defender. He was absolutely outstanding for his debut. I genuinely believe if they don't have him or Thiago Silva, Chelsea, they could have easily drew or lost this game, because there were times where Everton really looked dangerous. You had the Tarkowski header that was incredibly saved by Mendy, absolutely incredible save, and you had chances for Gordon and McNeil as well. Yeah.
What I am going to touch on with Everton is the lack of decision making in that team is a big worry, and I mean a big worry.
It is
going forward. I think their decision making that game was poor. There was I think there was a counter attack. It was 3 against 2. I think it was McNeil, Gordon, and another. I think it might have been. I don't think it was Gray. And Gray, instead of choosing the overlap, tries to thread it through a brick wall, and that's the chance cut out. And that's a big chance that Everton have late on to tie the game, and it's just so sloppy.
One thing I will say on that, though, is fantastic defending from Thiago Silva.
Fantastic defending nonetheless.
He just showed how good he is, because even though he doesn't have the pace, he's just calm, cool, collected. He put his body position in the exact right spot. But to be fair to Gray, that ball was on. Thiago Silva just read it incredibly well. If that ball gets through to Gordon, he's in on goal.
Yeah.
And
I just think it's decision making like that will cost them, though, because it wasn't the only ball on, and if he looks for the other ball, they maybe get a bit further, they get the ball into the box, and then they're asking question marks of Chelsea's defence.
As an Everton fan, I'd be worried at this point. Not incredibly worried, like, oh my God, we're going to be in another relegation battle. But it's more of a case of, I think that they showed glimpses, which is good. As I've always said, even if you lose in the first game of the Premier League season, you just have to show glimpses. Just don't get absolutely bullied. Just show glimpses that you can compete. I think Tarkovsky is going to be a great signing for them. I think he was absolutely solid. And I genuinely believe if they don't win that penalty, Chelsea, on that Chilwell overlap, this ends 0-0. Yeah, this ends 0-0.
What I am just going to put a quick bit in is we do wish Ben Godfrey a speedy recovery.
Absolutely.
A fractured tibia is never a pleasant thing. Lampard has confirmed it's going to be months, not weeks, so we do wish him a speedy recovery. As a Liverpool fan, as much as I hate Everton, it is never nice to see anyone in pain, losing time on the pitch. So, yeah.
What's very unfortunate for that is he got that injury trying to make up for a mistake he made. He tried to pass the ball back to Pickford and he overshot it. And Pickford, I don't know why Pickford tried keeping it on. He should just let it go out for a corner and cut your losses there.
Even if you look and it's, you can point fingers at who to blame. You can blame the linesman for not flagging that it did go out of play. It was about 2 or 3 yards over the line.
They've been told to keep their flags down, though.
Yeah,
those are the rules
which I think is an absolutely ludicrous decision. If you can see it goes out of play, or if you can see it's offside, flag up. It stops these sort of things happening.
It does.
Because at the end of the day, it was then a tackle that he didn't have to make.
Yeah.
And it's just a shame that he's going to miss, a big chunk of his season. Because he is a promising defender.
It is. But nevertheless, Chelsea, 3 points on the board, away to Everton. Chelsea fans will take it all day long.
Oh, 100%.
3 points away as well, and I'm sure performances will get better. Tuchel just needs to work out how he wants to set up, and with 20-odd days left in the transfer window, I expect Chelsea to still do some business.
Oh, 100%.
So,
on to the eyebrow raiser of a game. Manchester United versus Brighton and Hove Albion at Old Trafford.
Would you like to go first?
Where do we start? New season, same old Manchester United.
Do you know what? You got to let me start on this one.
Go on. I'll let you take the floor for this one.
So, right, Manchester United fans, bear with me here. Please bear with me, because you probably have got the exact same feelings as I do. But this was a game where I said it all through pre-season. They had a great pre-season. Ten Hag looked like he knew how we wanted them to play. There was great signs showing in pre-season. But at the end of the day, from the poor season they had last season, you have to start strong. If you don't start strong, all those problems just come flooding back. You had a chance for an absolute fresh start. If you win this game, people forget about last season. But all that's happened is those same problems just came roaring back in. And I'm going to touch on a few of them right now. Number one, they have absolutely no identity how they want to play football still. I thought Ten Hag might have them pressing from the front. He didn't. I was very surprised about that.
Yeah,
Number two, you've got a midfield that should not be playing together. You're playing Brighton at home, first game of the season. Don't play Fred and McTominay together. Play a more expansive type game. Play Ronaldo up top with Rashford if you have to, and take off a Fred and McTominay like you had to end up doing in the second half, which did change the game in United's favour slightly. But at that point, it was too late. And the defensive mistakes are just still there. You've signed Martinez. You've signed that little Dutch right back. Can't remember his name. Malacia. You've signed these players that are meant to improve your defence, but all you've done is just you've got the same blueprint at Man United. Nothing seems to have changed. I know it's only game week 1, and I know a lot of people will be saying, come on, do you know what I mean? It's only one result, which I totally agree. It is only one result. But
it does raise eyebrows. It does raise eyebrows.
You had Harry Maguire getting bullied by Trossard. You had Martinez not really understanding where he should be playing or who with. Like, for the first goal, the defense was just all over the place. They got absolutely carved open. It was way too easy.
Yeah.
In the 53rd minute for Fred. That's when United started taking a foothold of the game. But at that point, they're 2-0 down from a Pascal Gross double, where poor defending at the back post again led to a tap-in. They don't cut the ball out at source, so the cross comes in. It makes it difficult for your defenders. I mean, I could go on for absolute hours about Manchester United, but for me, there's just absolutely no DNA at Manchester United, and that all comes from the board. They are just not backing any manager that comes in, no matter who they come in. They're just not giving them the money. Like I've seen today that they're trying to sign Arnautovic and Rabiot. They're panic buying. They are panic buying. They are absolutely panic buying right now. I have absolutely no idea what's going on at Manchester United. If you listen to Roy Keane and Gary Neville yesterday after the game, they did like a 9-10 minute segment on it of them two going backwards and forwards and obviously being United fans, United legends. They're just, I feel for United fans right now. I really do. Going on at this football club. There's talks of Alex Ferguson being brought back in and trying to change things. They are just running out of options and ideas. And when you have a group of players that just won't run for a manager, now there's a difference between running and running in the Premier League. And what I mean by that is you can jog, you can sprint all you want at times, but if you look at the stats, they showed them yesterday after the game. Brighton, I think, between them, sprinted at least 15, 20 more. I think it was kilometres, that's it, than Manchester United. And that is absolutely unacceptable. Unacceptable. You've got players like McTominay, who's meant to be this young kid coming through that's meant to be a world star. And maybe he is when he actually has the ball. But the problem Man United have is when they do not have the ball. They don't want to run for each other. And I genuinely thought Ten Hag would be, out of all the managers that was left, obviously, they wanted, so let's just go back a bit. So we had Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in, and he steadied the ship for them, but the board decided he was never going to propel them up, but he steadied the ship. Then you had Ralph Rangnick come in for 6 months because they couldn't get the manager they wanted in Pochettino. Obviously, pointless, absolutely pointless. You might as well have stuck with Solskjaer till the end of the season at that point.
100%.
If you need to bring a manager in for 6 months. Absolutely stupid. And then, obviously, when they realised Pochettino wasn't doing as good a job as everyone thought he was going to do at PSG, they panic. But they find someone in Erik Ten Hag, which, out of everyone that was left, manager-wise, he was the best man for the job in my book. And I genuinely thought that he would be the answer to Man United's woes. And even though they had a half-decent pre-season, you come to the first game of the Premier League at home at Old Trafford, and at half-time you're getting booed off by your fans again. It's just unacceptable. It really is. They've got 22 days left of the transfer window, and I think they need at least 4 or 5 brand new signings to get rid of some of the dead wood, and I don't see it happening. If you've watched our first episode, and you see that I had Man United in 6th place in my predictions, I'm heavily doubting that right now, big time, which is great for me because it opens up a spot for a team like mine, West Ham United. But as a Man United fan, I would be extremely worried. And that is all I will say on the matter. I will leave it all up to you now, Joey Geek.
I think I just want to touch on a few key points that I made, mainly at the start of the game. You know, there was question marks who would captain Manchester United this season. Do you give it to De Gea? Do you give it to Ronaldo? Do you give it to one of the midfielders? And nope, Ten Hag has still opted to give Harry Maguire the captain's armband, which doesn't fill anyone with confidence. And I think...
Which leaves Varane on the bench, by the way.
Yeah, leaving Varane on the bench, whether you know that's an injury, whether he's not fit, whether he's not had enough game time, you know, in pre-season, whatever, you know, if you don't want to start Martinez and Varane in the same defence, fine. But you then... if you're going to start Martinez, you don't start it game week 1 against a team like Brighton, who play the expansive attacking football, who set up well as a block, and who cause issues. And that epitomises the second goal that starts from Brighton's corner flag.
Yep.
Pressing is appalling. It's not even pressing at this point, it's just running. You're just running after the ball. A back heel leads to, 2 passes. Adam Lallana finds so much space in that midfield. How anyone can give a midfielder that much space to play a ball out wide. Solly March takes a shot. It's appalling goalkeeping from David De Gea. I don't care what anyone says. You should have that covered. You should smother that ball. It's not a challenging shot. It's not a testing shot. Yes, it's low, but you, as a goalkeeper of David De Gea's calibre, of this great shot stopper, that is abysmal. And it leaves, Dallow's nowhere to be seen at the back post. He's sleeping, and that leaves Grossen open tapping.
Yep.
And all throughout the game, and I've had United fans say to me, the defence wasn't as bad as the midfield. The midfield was the issue. And yes, the midfield wasn't brilliant, but I don't think I could count on 2 hands how many times I saw Danny Welbeck have joy behind that defence. Danny fucking Welbeck. They made him look like like prime Alan Shearer. He had so much joy with that back line, it was silly. The defence was stretched, and then when it compacted, it was all over the place. There was no structure in that team. When they did take, I think it was wrong taking Fred off. If you were going to take any of the midfielders off, it would have been McTominay, already on a yellow, stupidly flying into tackles. You take him off. And then if you want to set up as a 3 in midfield, you play Eriksen, Bruno, and Fred in the 6.
Yep.
Which probably would have worked better. And I think it was, they brought Ronaldo on, which in my opinion undermines everything Ten Hag set out of wanting, or his antics in pre-season, I'm not going to stand for. He doesn't start this game and he doesn't come on. And then come 60 minutes, he's on. And I think it undermines everything that he's tried to set out. And it just shows to any player there that he's easy to walk over if the game's not going that well.
One thing I will say on that subject, though, is as a manager, when you see it's not going well, when you looked at his bench, though, it was the only obvious sub.
100%. I understand it was a sub that needed to be made.
It changed the game for sure.
But I think it still does undermine what he said leading up to the game and what he said in pre-season. It's unacceptable that these players left early, but they're going to be the same players that I start and bring on off the bench. Then where's the punishment? Where's this ruling with an iron fist?
What I will say, though, is a lot of people actually expected Ronaldo to start against Brighton. So he did sort of lay down the law when he didn't start him. Obviously, I think it was very unfortunate for them that Martial got injured, because I think he wanted to start that front 3 of Sancho, Rashford and Martial, who played all together through pre-season and were firing. But for me, if I'm in Ten Hag's spot at that point, 2-0 down, it goes back to my point. It never should have started with Fred and McTominay together anyway. 100%. And I believe if Martial wasn't injured, he might not have done so. But it's one of those. But what I do want to say, though, is we've spoken a lot about what Man United did wrong. I want to talk about what Brighton did right.
Trossard is a phenomenal player, and I don't think he gets the credit he deserves.
He is. But for me, I want to give all the credit in the world to Graham Potter, though. This guy is absolutely amazing at what he does. He brings an aura about him for me. It's one of those where no matter what situation he gets put in, he'll find a way. And he sets out his team, and he must have done his homework, because he knew exactly how to get at Man United, and those players must have followed that to the letter, because they dominated that first half.
100%. 100%.
They were absolutely amazing, Brighton, and it just goes to the point that we made in the first episode, why we had them so high up, and possibly even higher now, because they impressed me crazily. Again, the question marks do come down to defence for me. They obviously conceded the own goal, but for me, that's down to keeping error, and that's what I touched on in the first episode. I really don't actually rate that Sanchez. I think if Brighton was going to sign one more player in this market, I would sign a goalkeeper. Personally,
I disagree with that because I
goalkeeper.
do rate Robert Sanchez. I do think he improved from the start of last season, and I think he was probably a key factor in how they did so well.
He was, but he's just got a bit too few mistakes in him for me. And in a game like that, like in another day, because obviously the first goal for Man United is by a Sanchez mistake. All that does is just to give them confidence then. And to be fair to United, they basically dominated the last 20 minutes of the game, pushing for that equaliser. But the defence held strong. And I do think Brighton have a good defence. I think they have a good all-round team. It's not a crazy lineup, but it's a team that when you play Brighton, you're going to be in for a battle and you're going to be tested because Graham Potter is going to do his homework on every single team. So props to Brighton. Absolutely fantastic result. Away to Man United. You cannot start off the Premier League any better than that. And I can't wait to see what Brighton
it's going to be
do going forward. But United need work. United have got 22 days and the board needs to back Ten Hag now because if they don't, they're in trouble.
Yeah, definitely.
So, let's do the one I've been dreading then, JK.
Is this the West Ham Man City game?
Yes, sir.
It is.
So I think the best way we can do this is I'll talk about the West Ham performance, you talk about the City one.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, coming from a West Ham fan, now, all the Hammers out there that are watching and listening to this, don't be worried. Don't. I've seen a lot of stuff on Twitter about how Moyes got it wrong about some things and other things, like some players didn't even run. Now, I totally agree in the sense that we set up not to lose yesterday, but you're playing the champions Manchester City. I know that they're known to start slow. Obviously, they lost to Tottenham first game of the season last season, and everyone thought, oh, hold on a minute, we could have a right title battle on our hands here, and we did.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tottenham. They beat them twice. We really kept Liverpool in it. But from a West Ham perspective, I saw a lot of good things yesterday. You got to remember, we are playing Manchester City. I know it was at home, first game of the season, but you have to take into consideration, number one, our goalkeeper gets injured in the 29th minute, which is super unfortunate. Yeah. Even though I rate Areola more than Fabianski, and I do wish he would have started, as a goalkeeper coming into a game like that, you have to really try and get into the game as quick as possible. And then 7 minutes later, Haaland sprinting at you. And I'm going to touch on that penalty just a little bit because I've seen a lot of West Ham fans slating Areola for this. As a goalkeeper, being a goalkeeper in my youth days myself, in that position, when that ball gets played through, it was at least 75% in Areola's favour to beat Haaland to that ball. Haaland just showed the turn of pace he has, and no one expected that whatsoever. I do not blame Areola for that whatsoever. If I was in his position, I'm going for that ball. He just gets beaten to it. Fair play to Haaland. Great fucking speed. 100%. And obviously dispatches the penalty.
I'm just going to say that was a fantastic penalty, by the way.
It was a great penalty.
I've never seen sort of like precisely placed in the bottom corner.
With pace as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But touching on West Ham performance just as a whole, I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty about it. The things that I was impressed with from West Ham United, number one, Scamacca getting minutes. When he came on, he did look a bit of a threat. He looks like he'll be a bit of an aerial threat. He looks like he's going to bully defenders. My only question mark with Scamacca is, can he put the ball in the back of the net? And obviously, he didn't really get a chance to yesterday. But again, playing Man City. Second thing I want to touch on is, even though we looked poor, standout man again, as everyone expects it to be, Declan bloody Rice, guys. Well, what more can I say about this guy? How we still have hold of him, I'll never know. We had to give him the captain's armband to keep hold of him, most likely, even though it was the obvious choice. This guy has absolutely no ceiling. He's absolutely incredible. He was phenomenal again, even though I saw a lot of West Ham fans slating him on Twitter for not helping out the defence for Haaland's runs in behind. That's not really his job to do.
Not a lot he's going to do with a man that's quick. That's that quick either.
To be honest, at the end of the day, when you've got a team like Man City who pass the ball so quick and so precisely, and you get dragged about like you do, for me, Rice got let down yesterday by Souček. Souček for the last season and a half has really been struggling. He obviously had that breakout season where he scored the goals that kept us in the Premier League, and I'll never thank him more than for that, because that just propelled us to where we are now as a unit. But I think his race might actually be run at West Ham United. I'll be honest. I did touch on one little thing in the first episode. This young kid Flynn Downs. Now he's not ready quite yet, but you will see him come on in patches, and you might see him even start games as well. With us being in Europe, watch out for this kid Flynn Downs. He is going to be a little superstar. But as a whole, West Ham United, tough start to the Premier League season, losing 2-0. But as I say, there were things to be excited about.
There was glimpses of promise, I'll say.
There was. One thing I will touch on, though, as a West Ham fan, right before that game started and when the lineups came out, as soon as you see that we have one recognised centre-back playing against Manchester City, you're always going to struggle. Fair play to Ben Johnson. He slotted in there. I didn't actually know that Dawson was injured, which could be a big loss for us. Obviously, we're about to sell Diop, so I'm pretty sure West Ham United are going to be in the market ASAP for another centre-back, with Ogbonna still not back to full fitness and Nayafagard injured, thanks to Rangers in a pre-season friendly. Thanks for that, Rangers. But at the end of the day, West Ham United, we are a work in progress. We're in the Europa Conference League this year. It was a tough start to the season, but I genuinely believe that we have all the tools to do well. Obviously, we just brought in Maxwell Cornet. I think when we get everyone fit and Moyes can play the way he wants to play, because I don't think that's how he really wanted to set up yesterday, I think we'll be all right.
Yeah. I think a few things I want to touch on for this game is a similar quote what I said for United, but this is in a good way. New season, same city. I think they set up similar to what they did last season. I do think, they've got that big threat of that big Norwegian bastard up front. And, yeah, he's going to score goals. They've started to figure out how to play him. They've started to figure out, just give him the ball in behind. He's quick enough. He's strong enough. That second goal epitomises that. That ball from Kevin De Bruyne is bread and butter. Kevin De Bruyne. It's what he loves. And, Haaland runs onto it, and it's an almost an Henry-esque finish. He opens his body up, he slots it past the keeper. Yeah. Nothing much Areola can do. Nothing much the defence can do, really. It's just a well-timed pass to a well-timed run.
It's the ball he didn't receive in the Community Shield.
It's the ball
they have learned fast.
Yeah, they have learned quick. I do think City were complacent at times. I don't think, it was a vintage-styled performance with a volume of shots on target or a volume of, goals. But I do think, I think I've seen a stat after about 45 minutes that, West Ham had less passes than there were minutes on the clock, and that was just because City are so dominant in possession.
And we basically set up not to lose the game.
And I do think, West Ham did start very lively, and I think if you carry that on, you take the game to City. City don't like it when teams attack them. That's... I don't think City have ever liked it when teams attacked them, and you've seen that against Madrid last season. Very late on, scoring 2 in the 90th minute. I think it's appalling. What I will say, and City fans can bash me for this, but I think Jack Grealish has been a waste of money.
I agree.
I don't think he showed any glimpse of anything promising in that game against West Ham. I thought he was... I think they've taken what's brilliant about Jack Grealish out of Jack Grealish. What he picked up so well at Villa was he got the ball, he drove, he was creative, he had the freedom. City are a very well-oiled machine. There's not a lot of room for individualism. You see it in glimpses, but it's very much, get the ball, pass it quick, move the ball, don't, dilly-dally. Whereas he likes to take his time on the ball, and he doesn't get that.
I think as well for Jack Grealish, at Villa, he was a big guy in a small pond of water. Yeah. Now he's had to fit in gaps where City need him, basically. And that just doesn't work out to Grealish's game. He needs to be the star man. It wouldn't surprise me if this is Grealish's last season at City, personally.
I think he's very much what Coutinho was to Barcelona when they signed him from us. You know, Coutinho was the main man at Liverpool. He's gone to a Barcelona team where he's not the main man, and he's not liked it. Whereas like Jack Grealish is very much the same. As much as he'll love winning, he'll love the big paycheck. If he's not then performing or he's not getting game time, and if he's not doing well, you know that calls into do you pick him for England? Is then his international status is then jeopardy. And I think
I actually have the perfect example of this Grealish situation. It's when Alexis Sanchez signed for Manchester United from Arsenal.
I agree.
At Arsenal, he was absolutely world class. Goes to Man United, nothing.
Yeah. What I will say, and I am going to make you talk about this because you didn't in the first episode. What happens next at the end of the season when Declan Rice is out of contract?
Why are you making me talk about this right now?
Because I want to hear your opinion, and I want to hear other West Ham fans' opinion. What happens if if he doesn't sign a contract? Do you let him go in January?
No.
Or do you risk losing him on a free and losing so much money?
So, this is the biggest worry as West Ham fans, and all you Hammers can agree with me right now. We don't want to see Declan Rice go absolutely nowhere. But the be-all and end-all of it is, I think his only preferred destination will be Chelsea. And that is just simply because he wants to play with Mason Mount again. Now, whether that means that it'll be the only place he'll think about going, it remains to be seen. Only Declan Rice knows this. He's one of those players, though, that he won't think about it until the moment comes. He's fully on the next job ahead. And right now, that's leading West Ham United. But you asked me the question, how will I feel? God knows. I don't even want to really think about that at this point. It's one of those, like I said in the first episode, 3 years ago, I think it was even 4 seasons ago, I saw Declan Rice. He came on in a cup game and he played at centre-back and he played fantastic. And then we were short in midfield and he played midfield. I watched him then and he was fantastic again. And I thought, oh my God, this kid's something. And I told everyone the next season when I saw how small our squad was, I thought, well, Declan Rice has to play. And I said, watch out for this kid. And everyone was like, no, he's not as good as everyone thinks he is. He's not strong enough. He's not quick enough for the Premier League. He won't score enough goals. He won't be creative enough. He won't win enough tackles. Okay, granted, he don't score enough goals, but it's not his job to score goals. His job is to win the ball back and give it to the creative players, even though he can score goals, because I've seen him score some absolute bangers. But his range of passing is just unbelievable.
Oh,
but I'm going off topic here. I'm talking about why Declan Rice is so good. But it's hard because he's like one of my most favourite players I've ever seen at my club. He just embodies West Ham United, so it's going to be so hard to see him leave because I'm fully aware one day it will happen, whether or not it will be in January. From a West Ham perspective, if I was David Moyes, I'd have to just sit down with Declan Rice and just ask him basically, and I'd say to him, "Do you want to go in January?" If he says no, I'd say to him, "Well, what do you think about signing a contract at the end of the season?" Because these decisions have to be made now. And the problem is as well, we have a World Cup right before that. Yeah. So Declan Rice's mind will not be on a transfer window whatsoever, firmly on bringing the World Cup back to England. So that conversation isn't going to happen until mid-January, maybe even longer, because they'll get a couple of weeks break after that. Depending on how far England get in the tournament. So I don't really know, to be honest, mate. Yes. It's all questions that remain to be seen. It's one of those where I've been holding my breath the whole transfer window when it opened. Not hearing anything about Declan Rice just made me happier and happier each day. And obviously I saw him lead out our team yesterday, which was exactly what I wanted to see. But I think if you're a football fan in general, you know he's not going to be there forever unless we miraculously get into the Champions League, that might make him stay. But
remains to be seen, isn't it?
It does. One thing I will say though is I said this to my mate the other week. I said, if you're West Ham United, you actually want Mason Mount to actually have a bad season at Chelsea, because then you have the ability that Chelsea might want to sell him, and if Declan Rice wants to play with Mount, we'll just buy Mount. There you go. Declan Rice stays.
It'll be interesting to see what happens.
It will, but I'm not even going to think about that until it comes. I'm just going to enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah. It's going to be one of them.
Yeah.
We'll have to see what happens. Have to see.
So, should we finish off Sunday with Leicester Brentford?
Yeah, and we can then do a little touch up on the other results, 3 o'clock ones.
Yeah. So obviously, as you guys know, they weren't shown live, so we can't really touch too much on it. Obviously, we have match of the day, but that doesn't really tell you what you need to know at times. But
right, Leicester 2, Brentford 2. A very, very dismal evening for Leicester City, in my opinion.
Yes, being 2-0 up as well.
Yeah, from 2-0 up, look like you're controlling the game, and then to be lucky to even come away with a point after Brentford have a late goal disallowed.
Yep.
Is worrying signs for Leicester.
It was. For me, Leicester just showed that how out of depth they are right now, because they were 2-0 up. They went down to 2-1, and from that point on, they only made the one sub, Dewsbury Hall off and Daka on. And that was it. They had nothing else. Rodgers probably looked at his bench and was like, oh, shit, what do I have left? And there was nothing. There was just nothing. And Brentford made them punish for that because they were tired.
Yeah.
That's simple as. He didn't even rotate it for tiredness. Kept the same team on, other than bringing on Daka. And that's a very big worry for Leicester. A very big worry. They haven't made a single signing. They're close to losing more bodies if these transfer rumours actually become fruition. You've got Tielemans to Arsenal, and Didi to Tottenham, Maddison to Newcastle.
Fofana also on the way out, rumours.
Rumours of Fofana out as well. You've got an ageing Vardy who, yes, did set up Dewsbury Hall to make it 2-0, and Maddison obviously set up Castagna. They do have some good players, Leicester, don't get me wrong. But I don't know, man. It's a poor start. Being 2-0 up. If they'd have drawn 2-2 in 1-0, 1-0, 2-1, 2-0, you could say, all right, back and forth game for Leicester. Brentford showing why they stayed in the Premier League last season. But to be 2-0 up and just come away with that point after the disallowed goal is worrying times for Leicester City Football Club for me.
It is very worrying times. Also just shows how good that Brentford team still are. The likes of Ivan Toney scoring later on, and then Josh Da Silva getting his first goal for Brentford in the Premier League after 86 minutes.
Yeah, it just shows the resilience they had last season just gone anyway.
Yeah, it's...
Being 2-0 down and getting dominated in the first game of the season, Brentford fans will be like, oh God, is it beginning? But well done to Brentford for bringing it back.
Yeah. Don't think there's really much else we can touch on for that game, other than I can say it.
No, it wasn't a live one, so...
Good game for a neutral for the scoreline, but...
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's give a little touch up on the 3 o'clock kickoffs you had. Obviously, you had Leeds, Wolves. Leeds come away 2-1 winners. It's a very, very good result for them. Newcastle 2, Nottingham Forest 0. Brilliant start for Newcastle. A start that I think we'll look at and think, yeah, that's the start of a good. It gives them momentum. It kickstarts them.
It is. One thing I will want to touch on that game, though, I saw one stat that was doing the rounds on social media, and that is it's one of those where you sign a player for a lot of
that Jesse Lingard,
and it just doesn't work out for you. I saw a stat online where Jesse Lingard, he had 0 out of 7 successful dribbles, 0 out of 7 successful passes. The least he ran the least out of everyone on the pitch. Like, that is not what you want to see from a Nottingham Forest perspective. You've bought this player on a massive wage where everyone, when it first came out, everyone just thought, what are Forest doing? Lingard's just gone there for the money. And I don't know. I know I've got a bit of a West Ham head on. I wanted to see him back at West Ham, and he turned us down for a huge wage at Forest. But I do still like Jesse Lingard, but Forest really just showed nothing first game of the season, and that's worrying for a Forest perspective.
I mean, I have just looked up his stats. I think that is a snippet of the game because he completed 23 accurate passes, didn't really have a successful dribble attempt, didn't win an aerial battle, and lost the ball quite a few times, and other than that, didn't really do much, but
exactly.
Still, it's a lot of money. What was it? Because I heard rumours of 200k, then I heard rumours of 80k.
Oh no, it's at least 150k plus, because we offered him 110 on the day before he signed for Forest, and he turned it down for 150 plus. I think with add-ons it can go to 200k, but I'm pretty sure his basic wage is 150k at Forest. Yeah,
that's a rough one. And then we'll end it off on what was Bournemouth 2, Aston Villa 0. I think it's a great result for Bournemouth. It's worrying for Villa.
Fantastic result for Bournemouth, that. Fantastic. It's exactly how you want to start off your Premier League campaign, at home, with your fans behind you. And you don't, from what I've heard and seen, you don't only win the game, you pretty much dominate it. In terms of, obviously, if you look at the stats, it doesn't actually tell that story. 66% possession to to Bournemouth's 34. But you look at the goal attempts, and 15 shots from Villa and only 2 on target. Appalling. That is appalling. That is appalling. That is very worrying from a Villa perspective. But I've just got to give high props to Bournemouth in this situation. Villa, I think, will probably come good, but it's a worrying time. But I've got to give all the props to Bournemouth on that one.
And to end off the weekend, probably game of the week, and it's a crime that it wasn't televised. Tottenham 4, Southampton 1.
Yeah. One thing I do want to touch on this game, though, from a Tottenham perspective, you've won 4-1 after being 1-0 down to Southampton opener from that man, James Ward-Prowse again, who they will be lucky to keep hold of, if I'm honest, by the end of this window. It's just whether or not he stays loyal for me. But you had 4 goals go in, and Kane and Son are not on that score sheet. And that is, for me, if I was a Tottenham fan, that would be music to my ears, even though you want to see Kane and Son score every week to start the season off, and Kane and Son don't have to score, and you put 4 past Southampton, is a great start.
Oh, it is a great result, and it shows promise that, them players don't have to be heavily relied on the season.
And not only that, but Tottenham fans also have that ability now by winning by so many goals, and Man City not putting as many past West Ham as everyone thought. Tottenham, at this moment in time, are top of the Premier League.
A lot of Tottenham fans will be saying, stop the league now. Stop the league now.
That's it. They'll be taking screenshots for sure. But no, great performance from Tottenham. Yeah. It's a tough opener for Southampton, to be honest. I think they will struggle this season, Southampton. So it was a result I expected for sure.
Yeah.
But I didn't think Spurs would win it quite that comfortably. I was very surprised when Southampton went 1-0 up, but I could easily see Tottenham coming back. But again, going 1-0 down at home in your opener after 12 minutes, it just shows how good of a manager Conte is, because he's got those players drilled now where it used to be a case of Tottenham go 1-0 down at home, heads drop. Not under Conte. Not under Conte.
Not at all.
So big respect to Tottenham. Great result. And that rounds off...
Yeah, that rounds off game week 1. And
what a
game week 1 it was.
Final thoughts, Jakey, on game week 1.
Man United are in trouble. Tottenham look probably a little bit more promising than I gave them credit for. Will they carry it on? And Erling Haaland has arrived.
Yes, he certainly has. Yes, he certainly has. For me, Liverpool's inconsistencies come flooding back, which is why I couldn't have them winning the Premier League. Fulham have started fantastically, as I touched on earlier. Mitrovic getting 2, perfect start for him. One team I do want to touch on is Leeds United. I had them very low down, not quite relegated, but I genuinely thought Wolves would come away with all 3 points at Ellen Road. But those players that he brought in seem to have done the trick. I mean, you've obviously got that Adams from the Red Bull Leipzig.
Yeah.
He apparently played very well. The Aronson as well, Christensen, just Rocker, just to name a few new names that Leeds fans won't have known before they signed them. It's a great opener for Leeds United. I was very disappointed to see that Jimenez and Semedo were both injured, which I think was a big loss for Wolves. But I think Wolves will still be all right. But as I say, it's a fantastic opener for Leeds United. And it's so good to see the Premier League back.
Yep. The league that we've all missed. Summer break sucks.
Yes, it certainly does. Luckily, thanks to the World Cup, it was a shorter one than usual. So thank you. Thank you, Qatar.
The only time them sentences will ever be muttered.
100%.
But we will see you back next week for match week 2, where it's a very, very tasty London derby.
Yes,
Chelsea
it is.
host Tottenham. And
yes, that'll be the first test for Thomas Tuchel's new Chelsea.
And Conte's
Tottenham, yeah.
Other than that, you've got Forest West Ham.
We've got to pick up 3 points there.
And on Monday Night Football, Liverpool host Palace at 8 o'clock kick-off, where we hopefully pick up points.
That will be another interesting one for me because Liverpool need to win that game, and I think Palace have the ability to turn them over. I believe.
Yeah, 100%.
I genuinely do. But thank you guys so much for listening or watching, whatever you're doing. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Feel free to drop any comments. We will be reading them. Let us know what things you agreed with, what things you didn't. We want to hear from all the different fans.
And give us your predictions for match week 2. Who do you think who will walk away winners?
Yes, we might even read a few out during our next episode.
Yep. So we'll catch you guys in the next episode.
Thanks everyone for watching, guys.
Peace.